Yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on with my speaker. It's like signed in on my wife, doing all the work, so I'm all down for we'll make this work, so.
Okay, is everybody able to hear him?
Yes.
Okay, you're live.
Well, let's say we'll call it to order and then we'll start off with Daniel.
Okay, so they're gonna call the meeting to order.
Yep.
I don't know if you heard that.
Okay, meeting's called to order and turn it over.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, are they ready for me? Right now?
Yep, we're ready for you, Daniel.
Okay. So we are about 90% done with the audit here from 18 and 19. But a couple of things got brought up in our time here talking about the building authority and then also the foundation. The image of the building authority, the point of the audit is pretty much done. The only other question I guess we have is going back to the foundation and getting some more historical documents on that and seeing if we should be including that within the financials of the school district.
Okay.
We have to say no.
We've got them, the things you talked to me about yesterday, I have them to give to Lindsay, those balances and that type of thing. For the foundation.
Organizing documents too, I suppose, it's just how the foundation put together, mission, goals, and objectives. I would assume that just kind of the organizing charter, I suppose, of it.
I have bylaw, did she send them to you? We got bylaws coming. I've got the original Secretary of State stuff. I don't know what else I can find that right as of yesterday. I dug through about everything we had.
You did have bylaws in there at least then.
Yes.
Okay, good. So then, just another point in the call today too is, I've talked to Lindsay a little bit about this too, is I know, the foundation at one point had filed those nonprofit tax returns. And even the building authority should have been filing tax returns throughout the last couple of years that, if they haven't been, we should be, looking at getting those started. If you guys need help getting that started and set up with the IRS, we can do that as well.
Okay. We still got holdings in Bank of North Dakota at times.
Are you going to be engaged separately for those filings, or are you anticipating doing that under the umbrella of the audit?
For those filings, they're pretty straightforward. So if you guys wanted to do it, that's fine. So.
You got specific questions for us, or what else do you need, Daniel, or what?
Nothing else. I guess we were hoping we'd get the audit done, and a couple of those questions about the foundation, the buildings already came up. I guess I was just more just kind of just popping in just to give a quick update on the audit, and then just if anyone had any questions on the the status of nonprofit or anything else that they knew about the history of any of those entities, just to discuss about today. But I assume that both the building authority and that foundation, just nothing has been filed for them. We just need to get that caught up, and that's what everyone's kind of looking forward to doing.
I don't know if I'm not sure on the building authority if anything had ever been filed that I know of, but we have filed in the past for the foundation, just not the last couple years. But I'm not sure. I don't know. We can't find anything. Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, anything on the origination of the building authority, which would have been about 11 or 12. But I'm not.
I can find things about the origination. I just can't find anything about anything being filed as far as
Right.
the IRS.
Yeah. So are you saying you want us to do that separate?
I guess we need to try to work on getting some of that stuff caught up here.
Yes, that's where we're at right now. Just we need to get them caught up. But are you questioning, do we need to put it with the audit, or is that going to be separate? That's what she
Separate.
asked. Separate, right?
That should be separate. That
Yeah.
should not be under your audit
Right.
report.
Because that's what you were requesting yesterday, if you needed to include it. We're saying we don't need to. Are you okay with that?
I suppose we want to just see the bylaws of those foundations, see if we should be, or give a recommendation if we think we should be including it.
Okay,
I think like just right now, Lindsay has, so she can get those over to me whenever after the meeting or tomorrow sometime, just for us to take a look through them, so.
okay. Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Daniel? Guess we don't have any other questions right now, Daniel, unless you have anything more to, for us, just, so you're thinking we get done and then have that next month? Is that your thought?
Yeah, for sure, we should have it done by, next board meeting, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you.
Title was the one authority. Was it Barnes County North Building Authority, or what was the name of it?
I think so.
I believe so. Okay, so we'll roll back to recognize our visitors and then turn over Mr. Severson for some thank yous and congratulations.
Okay, first of all, congratulations, Mrs. Miller, for being selected as the Barnes County Teacher of the Year. Our speech team for their showing at state, the following placed was Allison Brin as third in poetry, and Sarah Mueller was sixth in EPR. And then a thank you and congratulations, Mr. Nelson, on his K-12 music concert, the spring concert that they provided. Congratulations to Sarah Mueller. She received a star rating in state music. And then congratulations to the class of 22 graduates on Sunday. And then a big congratulations to Brady Gassetti, who set a school record in the shot put. He threw 48 feet 10 inches, which is not only a school record, it is also state qualifying. So he will have another couple of weeks of throwing left this year. So
I'd like to add to Lindsay, congratulate her. She finished her business manager certification.
Great. Congratulations.
Any changes to the agenda? I'd like to move Garrett on the property insurance thing up, and we could let him out. Is there any other changes or additions? Anybody have?
small organized schools,
Any-
just to make sure you're okay with.
Want that?
I said
in?
just last, under new business last thing.
Okay. small organized. Okay. Need a motion to approve that amended agenda.
No, make a motion.
There a second?
I'll second.
Michelle, all in favor of approval of the amended agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Move you up, we're talking property insurance. We're looking at if we want, looking to change, if we want to change our agent.
Awesome. First off, thanks for moving in, guys. I appreciate it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Garrett Steckler. I grew up in the district, graduated from Wimbledon High School back in 2011. Went to NDSU. I've been back at TCI Insurance in Wimbledon for it'll be 2 years in August. So still kind of new to insurance, but wanted to present the opportunity to move over to TCI. Few different things we bring to the table, an excellent team as far as support staff goes. I would work hand in hand with Lindsay and Bud as they have questions or concerns. The board would be more than allowed to reach out to me as well at any time. What else? Basically, we're with the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund right now. It's as simple as signing an agent of record. Basically, a sheet of paper that's stating that we're changing agencies from current to TCI. We wouldn't have any adjustment as far as premium goes. If we did make changes to policies after looking it over, whether that's increasing values or what have you, then there's potential premium increase. But as of today, if we were to make the move by July 1st, there would be no changes. Everything would stay the same, other than I would be servicing the account. One other thing to throw in, I'm also junior high basketball coach for the boys. So I am in the school regularly in the spring and some of the winter. So, always available. Any questions for me?
And we did have you here, budget and finance and rollover, because they say there's nothing changing premium, because we're through North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund, so.
Right, right. And there was another concern about
About a boiler.
the Hartford steam boiler
Yep.
policy.
Yep.
We do have access to that as well. If you guys decide to make the change, I would go through the policies and address it. I'm actually surprised that there is a steam boiler policy. I believe it was probably for.
We
the
think it's from the
Wimbledon
Wimbledon school. Yeah.
school. So in that regard, you know, if it's not needed for the school, we could probably get rid of it.
Yeah,
Save some
see whatever is covered then. I think from our recommendation, we were, from budget and finance was okay to make the switch, right?
Yeah.
Cool. For
So-
those of you that weren't at the meeting, budget and finance, and you have some cards, if you guys got any questions or concerns, you can reach out.
So that's what's brought up to us if we want to change agents. So we would need a motion to do that. That's what we're looking to do.
Sounds like you guys talked about it and thought it was a good idea, right?
I don't know who the old agent is, or who the
Johnson
existing.
Farmers Union, out of Wind Johnson.
Well, I'll go ahead and make that motion to change the insurance agent of record for the Barnes County School
To TCI.
to TCI.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
I'm gonna abstain from it.
We should ask for Lee, has asked for abstaining, all in roll call to have him vote or not. That's how we should do it. If he should vote or not.
Chad,
Ask him to vote, yes, to vote, no to not.
Yeah, and his
Okay.
wife works.
His
Yeah,
works
yeah,
are conflict
no.
of interest. He's applying for a conflict of interest.
No,
He does not need to vote, right? No.
no,
No,
No.
Okay, no.
Okay, you're abstaining. Other than that, then roll call for motion.
Chad,
yes,
Jennifer,
Can we have discussion?
Yep,
Sorry.
yep.
Was it even entertained that Johnston Insurance Agency was discussed at a potential change? Or is this just somebody came to a meeting
somebody came.
to ask?
Yep.
No.
Cindy,
Yes.
Michelle,
no,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
so we have two no, one abstain. Or yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. You would have paperwork for us, Garrett?
I already
Or
have
Lindsay's got that?
because he brought
Okay.
it to that committee meeting.
You're welcome to stay.
Well, like I said, guys, I do appreciate the time, listening to me and the audience. Any questions or concerns at any time, feel free to reach out. 24 hours. I may not answer at 2 in the morning, but I will call you back when I see it. So,
Okay.
all right, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda is minutes, bills, and financial reports. Any questions or comments on those?
Yes.
Yep.
Do we have capital equipment purchases coming yet for transportation?
The bus bid is on the agenda.
Okay.
So
I just didn't see anything attached, so I wasn't sure. And then when is the lease payment normally due? It's still in the budget for $900,000.
it's normally due in August. We have discussed at the Budget and Finance Committee, because they used to pay it in June, depending on what the carryover requirements were for that particular year. Because the carryover requirements are eliminated for this year, we're going to pay that into the new fiscal year in July for the August due date, because it will help us with our carryover
Carry
allowances for
moving
next year.
Good question, but that will probably come up with our budget. report.
Yeah, because you're gonna look way flush right now. You got
Yes.
$1 million surplus
Yes.
because of that, but
Yes.
fuel won't eat that. And then can you run, it's almost impossible to know payroll budget versus actual versus what's left, the way that the reports are given to us. Can you run them by code 110, 222, 3210, so forth sometime?
Okay,
I don't need it for this meeting, but at some point that would be nice to see, because I tried to understand how much staff is in elementary, how much is in junior high, and how much is in high school, but then music,
mhm,
activities, transportation, everything
Mhm.
else is separate too, so it's
Mhm.
almost impossible to know what.
you
Your
probably know
labor
what
numbers.
report to run better than I do to show that to you.
Maybe.
Without
It's
showing
been
the
a little
people's
while since I looked
names,
at
so
it,
I'll get in touch with you and see
Okay.
exactly what you want, so.
but, okay, sounds good.
Any other questions? Or comments? Not, we need a motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
STY software comes with technical support, right?
Mhm.
You have a contact you could shoot an email for. too.
Well, I can call customer service and talk to whoever answers the phone.
Okay, just checking. Okay,
Mhm.
Motion to approve,
Sorry.
is there a second? Consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, Cindy, any other discussion? Not roll call. Lindsay.
Chad.
Yeah.
Jennifer,
yes,
Cindy,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Audit we've taken care of, we'll move to reports. President's report, I have none. Now, career and tech. Getting towards the end there, we're grant update, still waiting for the federal approval on the health monitoring segment and the community access. And also waiting on Valley City on what decision they are gonna do with the land. We talked about we did budget updates. See where we're ending up. We talked about last day of school for everybody. All the different entities trying to finish up there. Worked on, all the teacher contracts are back. I signed all those for them. We also worked on support salaries and starting to work on negotiations for the director for contract for the next few years. We also moved our flex benefit thing to the IRS match of 2850. We were sitting still back at the 12 and 1500, so we did move that. The house, we're building a house for an individual. We've cut a cutoff where they want us to be. So we're basically gonna go up to the sheetrock and window section. They're working on the land. We're also, so the decision there was that we could probably leave it there in case we're leaving it at the vocational center. Usually we have it moved out by the summer. But we're working with a realtor and stuff, on-site house for next fall. But last year that fell through right at the end. So we're leaving that at the site. So if they can't get their land purchased and moved, we have something to get started on in the fall. So that's where the house project is at right now. Gives us an option in case it doesn't get moved. We still got finishing of sheet or the cabinets to put, and there's stuff they can do moving into the fall if the other on-site thing doesn't come to fruition.
but it will be weather tight.
It's all shingle,
Okay.
it's all tight, it's not sided yet, so there's stuff they could do if it comes in the fall, because they wanted to do some of that themselves, so this was the point that we were to get to. They wanted to do this, then they're gonna put a garage to it, so they didn't want the siding and some of that, so. It's to the point where we were committed to get to on the house there. So hopefully, by the, as soon as that Fed gets back on that grant thing, they're down to them 2 things that they're looking at, waiting for approval on those 2 parts of that grant. But everybody's it's all the state CTE ones are still waiting for those 2 components. That was the last things that they put in. But it's hard to believe that they're not gonna kick one out and without kicking them all out. I don't think that's gonna happen. Our biggest concern is gonna be our match money to get that grant secured. So that's where we're at its location. Policy committee. Any Any more to whether you got one policy coming?
No,
up?
just the virtual learning, we got that down there,
Down
that's
below.
the first reading, but just, and then but also when we go to the school calendar update to move that 5 days to 3 days.
Yeah.
So that'll be on there. I don't know how you want to tie that in, but those would be the two things we need to discuss.
So we can tie it in with the policy
Yep.
stuff down there?
Yep.
Okay. Extracurricular? committee,
Um,
anything?
Basically, we talked about that they should have a AD hired by July or in July sometime, so that they can get it acclimated and get ready for the school year.
So we gonna open that up or how?
We never really talked about that, so I don't know what you want to do as far as that goes. Do you want me to put out a listing that we're looking for people and set a date? And I'm not sure what process you guys want to use for
Right,
that.
that's what I said. Did they discuss a
Nope.
process at that?
Nope,
committee,
just
you know?
decide they needed to have somebody in by July
Okay,
or sometime in July.
by July.
I would think you'd want to get it listed
I
then.
would
wouldn't
think
you?
so, yeah. So we just list in-house, see where we're at. That's, I would guess the process, what we're gonna do, just put it
But
out there.
that's, I mean, they never really discussed that. They said they just wanted the
Right.
best person.
With the board. We're all right with that?
Just put it out to in-house and see who's
See if
willing
anyone
and.
wants.
That's a good place to start anyway.
Wow.
We've got some that are interested, so
Okay.
you'd have to decide what you want to do if you decide to hire a teacher. You have to decide what you're gonna give them for reimbursement and for time purposes.
Okay, so how do we have that discussion right now, or what's the?
I don't
what's
think you
your
have it right now. I
recommendation?
think you need to, if you're interested in a teacher, the next curricular committee is gonna have to meet again and decide, what do they want to look at? And then bring it back to the board for approval.
What was AD getting before? There was extra on it.
Five.
5,000.
5,000.
Yep.
But you also.
But
have to look at-
because of the position I was in, I didn't need any extra time, but if
Right.
if you're having a teacher that's teaching a full load
Right.
and then having to take over the AD, I mean, it's easier now than it used to be because everything's done online, so you can answer emails. You don't have to take phone calls anymore, so I mean, you can answer emails, text, whatever, during your free period or whatever, so it's not as communicative on the phone wise. Because that was a lot of the things before was that you spent a lot of time on the phone.
There is a lot of meetings and stuff too, so if you hire a teacher, they're out of the building.
They're out of the building. Yeah.
At the next extracurricular meeting, what needs to be done is that the duties and responsibilities of that position lined out
Right, and I thought that's what it
and
was gonna, you guys didn't talk
We
about
didn't
any
talk
of that?
about that.
Okay,
get
'cause that's what I
those
thought we were
things.
going with, was getting that.
Because the major part of that position has to do with being after school.
Mhm.
That's all the time that's required of it after school. The AD should be at all of the events that are taking place. If, just looking at Mr. Severson's part on there, if he is not able to find somebody to fill one of those spots, he's hopping in and having to do it, finding people to work. Those of you can, then you're one of the people that gets put into that position to do it. So it comes with a huge time requirement.
I think
outside
what
of
we need
school
to do
hours.
is get that group back together, because I thought that's what they were gonna, Mike and I, we talked that they're gonna look at responsibilities and stuff.
They had mentioned that it depends on who's interested in what that looks like too, though. So I think that's why it was
Wasn't really. put
not
together.
clarified, because if you guys put it out in-house and there's nobody, then it'll look different than if it's,
But there's
in-house.
still, to Chad's point,
Yeah.
there's duties.
there are
That are
specific
needed to be
duties
completed
that.
by no matter who takes. the
Yeah, it
But
position.
shouldn't
you're gonna
look
need to
too
know.
different.
No,
It's just
right.
how the functionality of those duties are accomplished based on the person's position
They-
within the
they-
school.
And I
external to the
think,
school,
I
so
think we
forth.
would still get applicants based on what
Right.
they know about AD duties.
Yeah,
So
but I think going to, before you can put out the feelers and see who's,
I
But-
just
but
didn't know
before
if you
you
guys were
interview-
talking about waiting to put it out there before.
No, I
until
think-
you have that clarified.
I think you want to get clarified as soon as possible, but at least put that, hey, we're looking for an AD to start in July.
Yeah.
And then have the duties before they interview or something of that effect.
Get some feedback
Yeah.
on it and see.
Duties before,
Yeah, get your duties lined out, but throw the,
yes.
throw out the, hey, we're looking for an AD. And then the extracurricular committee get together before you start interviewing people. So that applicant knows these are the duties that are expected of you.
Mhm.
If you can or cannot do that, you want to, still submit.
And who's gonna, that can be extracurricular, who's gonna interview that position?
I think it'd be extracurricular. I mean, I think those would be the first group that would have the say of how they see it.
So we'll put it out. Extracurricular will get together. Work on some duties and knowing they're gonna interview candidates. Okay. Anything else there? Not, we'll go to tech. Yeah, well,
Just what I had in the, and put it out there, I can.
She sent an email to the entire
Yeah.
listserv.
just to change something in that one paragraph.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
paragraph's got to get changed because if we approve the virtual learning policy and kids can take stuff home, I think in the first line, it says that you can, or in the first paragraph, it says
Somewhere in there.
412, only 412 can take them home.
Grades 4 through 12 are allowed to take the device home, while grades K through 3 will leave the device at school.
Yeah.
Now, is pre-K going to be considered virtual day?
Yeah, we
learning?
are now 1-1, so they could,
So, because you don't even have pre-K.
right, we
in
would
this.
still send it home, and then it would be up to the parent and what their.
Oh, I just-
like.
The policy. doesn't
Yep,
cover
nope,
pre-K.
absolutely, we talked about that too. I think then they switched that. Pre-K wasn't 1-1 at that point, they had,
This is 2019.
yeah, and they, yeah,
Wasn't even 5-day pre-K.
right, and last year even, they only had 3 devices in the room.
Okay.
So, but when we surveyed, I think everybody that year had access to one. So,
Would you
That-
want to
that's the
send
difference.
devices home with pre-K and a K?
yes,
Those kids know how to handle devices better than we do.
True story.
and we talked about all the what ifs, and
But then it pays
Melissa
for
has
it.
more accidents happen to the devices that are stored here than the ones that go home. So,
And the iPads that come home are like,
case stuff and.
yeah. The laptops at school, I would guess are harder. The high school, I would assume has more problems with the equipment than the elementary in that type of function, but
True.
So I guess if we need to vote on that, we'll tie it in with that policy down here to make the motion.
Yeah, I think, I'm wondering if we want Melissa to rewrite it and bring it back in June,
Do you guys-
if you guys
do you
approve
guys
the
approve
virtual
that,
stuff.
the tech plan?
Not the tech plan.
I
We just
think-
do the policies.
Yeah, and that's not a policy, that's just the tech.
That's her plan. So she would just change
It's
it
in
then
the
and bring it back.
no, this is
Says
a policy
It's a
handbook.
Policy handbook.
Mhm.
Because I remember meeting as a committee in 2019, I don't remember. bringing it.
Policy handbooks for technology.
Yeah, so I would think she would
devices
bring
issued.
that back.
Yeah.
So if you guys approve the virtual learning, because of weather delays, then she would change that and then
Yes.
bring
Bring
it
that
back in
back.
June. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Pre-K 6, Mrs. Bussey.
Yep, so last year we started Years of Service Awards. This year we had Mrs. K, Mr. Purcell, Mr. Wilson, Miss Barnes through Cheyenne Valley Special Education hit their 5-year along with Miss Michelle. So last year I asked everybody to respond to me how many years they've served on the board and in the school. So recognizing that, Mr. Samuelson is on his 25th year this year. So if you see him, recognize him for his years of service. So yes, school board members will be included.
What years are you recognizing? 5?
Yep.
What-
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, every 5 would be.
Every 5 years.
Yeah. Um,
What's it, what Michelle got hers for?
This is her 5th year on the school board.
Oh, Cindy,
And so is Brett.
what a slacker.
You did respond, so yes,
Watch is quicker than your phone.
I will
Mhm.
add that. I'm so sorry. Recognize Cindy and Brett too.
I'm not worried about.
Did you
it, but
respond to
let-
me?
Probably not.
Do we have to?
Yeah, not very on the radar.
Some do go to my junk mail, shells, but I will get that for you. So we had our first ever BCN student who scored a 10 out of 10 on the writing portion of the North Dakota State Assessment. And I am also collecting Steve Dunn writing samples. He's a huge investment. So, you know, we're showing the growth as we continue to use that process throughout trainings and stuff. I have those. I hope to show some in June on the board, so you can see, and then as we grow, you can look at that and just know where our investment is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she'll be recognized at our elementary awards day also. Reading core, I had asked somebody on the curriculum committee if that has to be approved every year, if we can kind of budget that in. It's $5,000. Data shows growth in our students, that it's beneficial. I'm bringing that up this right now because Becky is expecting a child in October and has decided to take the whole year off, because if you work 1 month, that's considered a year of reading core. And so we don't want to use her for a few months here and there and then have it count as one of her years of reading core. So then we would need to find a tutor to replace her for this upcoming year. We awarded over 11,434 points for wise and pride behaviors and working with our students. As of today, 573 wise and pride cards for staff, students, and community members were written. Students in pre-K, first and second grade all received at least 2 wise and pride cards. Mrs. Kuderna, as part of our mental behavioral health grant, we did our MTSS process, our SEL side of it. So tier 1 is all of our students and the support she provides in the classroom every week for 30 minutes. And then through a screener and teacher feedback, we identified a tier 2 group that she did small group interventions with. And we had great comments from teachers. Every group grew according to their pre and post assessment that teachers and students self did, except one group. And it was fun. We considered a win because here they're like, oh, I do this, I do this, I do this. And then after they were reflecting, okay, maybe I don't speak very nicely to my friends. And so they were really thinking through it. And then our tier 3 are the students who are referred to the therapists that have come into our building this year. So I met with Dakota Family Services about what that looks like to continue that service and the sustainability of bringing them into our building next year. Again, I have families asking about it already. So we've been in contact. She was going to run some numbers to see what that would look like overall, see if it's doable, the budget, and we've been in contact about the foundation money. So yes, that's it. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. So some of those thumbs you'll bring to budget and finance.
Yes, once I know more, I
Okay.
don't
know
the numbers exactly yet.
Mr. Will, go
The
ahead.
tutor part, would that be an open up position interviewing, or is that something
It
that?
could be, or it could be a referral from some, I would suggest opening it just in case, but
But it's not an already in-house staff.
it's not.
Okay.
No, it couldn't be.
Okay.
She is considered, it's so weird because she's considered half-time, but she's literally here all day and working with students all day except a half-hour prep and a lunch. So it's tricky about how AmeriCorps works. But yeah, they recommend college students, which you'd have to be completely online because of our schedule, retired teachers, grandparents, because you do get a college stipend. So I have all the information, so I'm just waiting to find out what our because I know it's curriculum, but kind of. So I just wasn't very sure.
Wilson, 712.
All right, graduation is set, ready to go. All 16 of our seniors have completed all their requirements and will graduate on Sunday. We had our graduation walkthrough today at 2 p.m. and then we had our practice run through afterwards. Today was the last day of finals for students. May 5th, the senior English project presentations took place. Mrs. McGee had many judges from the community sitting in as the students presented. I know Cindy was a part of that, and so was Mr. Severson, and it went really well. Cindy, if you want to speak to your experience when doing that.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting. Most of the students, their project was career-based. So they talked about, you know, what they were interested in doing outside. It didn't have to be that, but that's kind of how it fell. But we were told it was gonna end at 10:30. It went longer, but I didn't mind because it was very interesting. All the kids did a really good job. There was obviously some where nerves kicked in a little more than others, but I was actually very impressed with a lot of the projects. So I thought it went really well.
And just an overview on it, it wasn't something that they just spent a couple of weeks on. This was their project from, I think she got it up and running, it was the first year in October. So they've been working on this the entire time of doing it, of having mentors, advisors. They had to write a huge paper on it, get it, you know, revised, present that stuff. Talking with Mrs. McGee about it today or whatnot, that you know, a lot of them complained about having to do it or whatnot, but at the end, some of them that thought that they wanted to go into something as a result of the research and finding out all the things that are entailed in it, they changed their minds and realized that it wasn't something that they wanted to go into, or they needed to do other stuff before they went into it, which would put them in a better situation once they got into it. So at the end, they realized the value in it. They just didn't necessarily like the process of having to go through it, but those are kids.
It sounds really interesting. Would it ever be something that those could be put like on our website?
Yeah, and they displayed them at
Family fun night.
Family
Yeah.
Fun Night.
But
Yeah.
right, but to
Oh, was it
hear,
recorded?
like to
Yeah, it
hear.
was recorded, wasn't it?
I
Yes, she did.
think so.
Should be
You know, it's
fine.
one thing to see it, but it's a whole nother
Yeah.
to hear the whole presentation like you were able to do.
And I know Mrs. McGee gave them the option of doing the regular English curriculum or this. And they picked this thinking it was gonna be a walk in the park. And they all said afterwards that this was way harder than probably doing the regular English
But
curriculum.
more valuable.
And going forward, I think this is what she will be doing
Yep.
for the seniors, so.
That's
no, it
amazing.
was-
That's great.
And as a result, we had quite a few that had chosen to try and take the ACT test so that they thought that they'd be able to test out of it and take the dual credit just to get out of it, but not gonna work that way.
I love it.
But so, yeah, that went really, really well. May 10th, we had the awards banquet for boys and girls basketball speeds, scholarships and dollars for scholars. Mrs. Heinze in her facts class provided the meal. It went very well. And next year, we hope for it to be even bigger with more activities involved. So eventually, the idea is that it'll include all of our activities, school sponsored or other ones. You know, I've been contacted by others that had already done it, but want to be a part of it next year as well. So it went really, really well. May 11th was the senior trip. We took the students to Sweet Shot, the mall, and then Tactical Action Gaming. That's a paintball-like game place. Bud and I chaperoned. I don't know if anybody's ever driven by that Sweet Shot in Fargo, but that
On the
place
south
is
side. yeah.
super nice. Wow. Couldn't believe it. And I was shocked because as we were walking in, I asked one of the students, what made you guys pick golf? Everybody wanted to golf. Well, how many of you ever golfed? None of them. So it was pretty interesting though, and they had a lot of fun. May 12th, the 7th grade science fair was in the big gym. We had several parents and people come in and take a look at that. They had a lot of creative displays and a lot of pertinent information. And then the next day was the health fair for Mrs. Albright's health class. That one went well too. The 7th graders the other day went on a field trip to the Barnes County water treatment plant. And they got to see how the process of getting the drinking water and usable water goes through. Some of them were shocked at how that process is done and what all goes into it, and the amount of chemicals and stuff that are in your water. So that was a good learning experience. Yesterday, Mrs. Heinze's student presented their food trucks, and that's what's lined up on the windows right there in the hallway. And for each one of them, they had food that they had to make and prepare and go. Students and staff were able to come through there. Food didn't last very long because I got there about 12 minutes into it and most of it was gone. It was really, really good. And they did a really good job in creating the designs and coming up with their menus and all of those things. So that went really well. Mr. Undum had his environmental science students present their projects during the first hour, and those were really well done. The creative process, they had to work in groups on having a problem and then finding a solution and then building a model to demonstrate it. One of them was hydroelectric dam, and I think Levi was the one that had done that one, and they spent some time on those, and those kind of things our students like doing, and being able to explain it is proof that they are actually learning the material on there. Another part, Mrs. Heinze's FCCLA and the elementary peer leaders held a hat day to raise money for the Jamestown Humane Society. They raised a total of $108 and also a bag full of chew toys that were made by the students. And I presented that to my wife because she's on the board for there. So I'd like to thank them for doing that. And then today, Mr. Schaefer's geometry class had their projects on display out in the hallway. And these were really, really cool. They had to write a story. They had to make a short movie and then make a poster, a movie poster that would go on display. And down to all the last details. The stories were well written and not just on a piece of paper. They put them in binders and printed out, made it just look all official and whatnot. And watching the videos of the short movies, and it all revolved around a math problem. So they had to write the story, do the movie based on a math problem that they were given. And they were awesome. It was really something. This was the first year that he has done that, and told him he needs to keep doing that because they were really, really good. The part that shocked me is how well written the stories were. That just, they had put a lot of time and effort, and they had to do it in groups, but they were really nice. Good to see. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions? No, thanks, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Severson, Superintendent or AD?
Much final days tomorrow, graduation Sunday, HOB ITV meeting on June 1st in Mayville. And you can see on our agenda what our last board meeting looks like. We'll start at 6 o'clock with our long-term demographics plan, which is just legislature put it in it, if you do it every even numbered year. And then we'll have the special meeting to canvass the votes at 6:30, and then the regular meeting at 7, and then special ed meets on the 21st.
Okay. Questions there? No, thank you.
Why on Monday? Because of the canvassing the votes thing? Okay, thank you.
Family connection.
We had our father-daughter dance, which we postponed a week because of weather. And now I know how the school feels when they have to make that hard decision whether to have school or not. Because as soon as we postponed it, it cleared up. But it was okay because we learned that it would be a really good idea, and Mr. Purcell is on board with this, to have the father-daughter dance the day after prom and use their decorations. So, and the only reason we didn't do it this year is that we had all the stuff. So, but we had 33 families participate with a total of 43 students. And I believe they had a really good time. So, yeah, so we'll be doing it again next year, but we will be following prom.
Okay. Good. Move to old business on calendar update.
And that would just be that the recommendation from the committee was that if the virtual learning policy gets accepted, that you move from 5 days without making up a day to 3 days.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to do that as just an amendment to the calendar now, or wait till after you approve the policy.
We can maybe pull her all together
Okay.
right there.
That works.
Preschool teaching position update.
I'm writing notes on the calendar, sorry.
Okay.
Do you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I sent everybody an email, kind of giving you a glimpse of what we put together based on who we hired, and it was offered to Melanie Pratt and she accepted. So now we have a special education teacher position open, which I have been in communication with Tracy about throughout the process of the application being turned into me. And per their negotiated agreement, she opened it up to her staff for transfers until Friday. And then she will post for outside applicants.
So they handle the hiring and all that stuff.
Yes.
You guys sit in on it just to,
She usually invites us.
Okay.
So, because we work.
just to kind of have a feel of what, okay.
Yep,
Did we have a lot of applicants for preschool?
we did not. No, we had two, but one didn't meet the qualifications that were set forth through. preschool. So, you know, we had a couple inquire, but the age came into play. So I'd say keep us in mind for the future if something opens up, and
For the motion to approve this hire, I would guess, right?
Yes.
yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second. Any other discussion? If not, roll call, Lindsay.
Chad.
Yep.
Jennifer.
Yep.
Cindy.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes,
Graduation update.
And Mr. Wilson kind of just went over, they did the walkthrough and everything today. On Sunday, we'll just show Mike what his role is. He will be handing the diplomas to the parents, who will then give to their kids, turn the tassel and stand for pictures. We have three that actually opted out. Mike will present to two of the students and I'll present to the third one. So that's about it.
Opted out for
Having
parental handling, they will
yeah.
still be there.
They'll be there,
Okay,
but
okay.
they just opted out that
Got it.
they wanted Mike to hand it, either Mike or myself to hand it to him
Got it.
instead of them to the parent coming out.
New business, non-certified staff discussion. We talked a little bit at budget and finance. And the suggestion was, like in the past, talk to that staff, to at least to visit with them a little bit. A lot of it was clarifications of stuff. They're looking at their benefit side. They're finding if we look at anything, there'd be more on the monetary side. Questions on, do we need some more definitions of stuff of floating holidays, standard hours? They really are looking and still waiting to see that employee handbook that come across many times. And then it's mostly in clarifying standard hours. I mean, are all our pairs on the same standard hours? Are all the kitchen, I mean, coming up with the number that's on this sheet that we calculate 403s and disabilities, that stuff works on those standard hours, which, as we talked at budget and finance the week before, we can't come up with anything that matches the amount of hours. And most of it's for budgetary purposes, but the only one that affect is the 403s. And we had a little discussion today with that about how we should be handling that 403. And are we gonna look at more of that, or what do you think, Jen? For that,
I've
match.
never seen a 403B
work like that.
computed off of a standard number versus actual payroll.
Right,
I don't know if it's proper or not. I'm not saying that, but I've just never seen it happen. Because when we audit payroll on 403B, we go back to hours and actual computation. So I don't know how the state is allowing reporting based on payroll not matching your 403B computation. That's what I don't understand. But
Right.
I don't know if that's a,
Yeah, you could only do that if it was a salaried position, but if you're paying them hourly, it'll never line up. So
correct.
yes.
I'm not sure.
Because the computation is generally, it's a policy that's in your audit report that says your 403B plan is X percentage of salary.
It's gotta be a night.
When you go to test that, I could about imagine that the material difference there would be an audit opinion. I mean,
One
I
of my
can't
first
believe
questions I
you,
asked when I was hired. is
Yeah,
why do we do it this
Why do
way?
you
can't
do it
believe
this way.
you've never had a finding in your audit report in relation to your pension compliance.
Well, the audits haven't been done for.
Yeah, but I
We
mean,
know
if
the
they-
answer.
Yeah, so FYI, from my technical knowledge, I don't know how that works.
Well,
Can you use that as just kind of a ballpark? You kind of know how much you're in for budgeting?
So what
We
came up?
we
when I
use it
was-
for budgeting, but
Yeah.
but we're also using it for the match and the disability. So that's what we're talking. I don't know if
Right,
That should
right.
be all we're doing. For budgeting, it's fine.
You could probably do it with a standard monthly payment with for cash flow purposes, but then you should have a true up situation.
Right, yeah.
well, we have the most recent copy of an employee handbook, which was
They were
John
doing
Bruce was a
16.
principal
So that was,
before.
The one I
6
have
years
is
ago?
dated 15/16 that I got
So
from
I-
Joanne.
So I think I have one more recent than that.
Yeah.
That, you know, I was gonna have Mr. T type it to a document for internship hours. And then we can visit about it and see, and I talked to Lindsay and she said, just make sure that I am a part of that, so we can match laws and policy and handbook. And I have it and it started.
But that's come up last year. We talked about it and they're on that. They want to see that. hand.
So use that as a guide,
Yep.
Start it.
start it, and then go from there. That's what I assumed that we could do or.
Yeah.
So,
Then we gotta bring something to us to look
Yeah,
at or
yeah.
approve or.
and a lot of our policy that we're reviewing and going through says this should be in the employee handbook. This
Mhm.
should be
Right.
included in the employee handbook. So,
Because all of our policies say anybody new coming should have this employee handbook. and A
Yeah.
lot of that ties right together.
yeah, so.
So from that conversation, there was, a lot of it was clarifications and questioning, basically talking about hours and floating holidays and is more
Definitions.
definition type things to get to we're all working the same and everybody's understanding it the same.
That was about 6 of the 9 bullet points.
Yes,
All clarification.
yeah, because
Which goes back to that student, that employee handbook, all those definitions would be there.
Yes.
all would be there.
They're
As I say, if we had
all-
that thing, it's there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would clear up a lot of
Mhm.
it, yeah.
But
So in that conversation, they talked about are all the pairs on the same time at 7 hours. But that's what everything was understanding to be. So
Cheyenne Valley looks a little bit different.
different, Cheyenne Valleys that are in our pairs.
So I was under the assumption it was 8 until the end of the school day unless they were to stay for a meeting. So 8 to 3:30.
7.5.
Which is.
And that depends on if they're told to clock out for lunch or take their half hour.
Well, that's where the
lunch break.
question came, who is
So,
deciding that, or because we talked about the overtime, because some are bumping close to that. So there's a lot of questions there on paras.
That would be part of the employee handbook development.
Nice.
Just note that that would be a
I
paragraph that will be
absolutely
defined.
would be, I will note.
Mhm.
Because the understanding was of 7 hours, and that's what we're questioning where we're at. For paras.
Because for principals asking your staff to do certain things, you have to know how much is budgeted
Budget and
towards
extra, yeah.
and
Yes.
where
Yeah.
your pool is left or whatever, so.
Well, and then some drive bus, so they're not here until 8:15.
That was discussed. as
That
well,
was
yeah.
Okay.
discussed at all.
And yeah, so. And I can see some people probably, I mean, prior 7 hours would be 8:30, but we utilize them for morning coverage. In different areas too, if the teachers.
But that's
meet.
where the discussion comes, if
Yep.
you're using them for that, and then if they flipped into overtime, that would
Yeah.
have to be approved as superintendent wise. Because that's
Yeah.
what they've asked for everybody else.
That'd have to be maybe a rotating who assists.
Who
for
would be
morning
assisting?
shift.
And
instead
that's
of all hands
perfectly
on deck.
fine, but I'm just wondering if they're doing 7.5 hours a day. I mean,
It needs to
and
be
I know
defined.
I've had conversations, but yeah, I agree. Cheyenne Valley looks different.
Yeah,
So-
that has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is our side
Yeah.
here, So from that, are we looking to do anything with that staff? Are we looking to get back with
That's tabled.
negotiating group or?
That needs to be,
No, for looking for, by next month, we have to make a recommendation of where we're gonna go payroll, raises, anything for that staff. Basically by our next meeting, which is the 20th, giving Lindsay just a little time to get that set up by July 1. With all the new rates would go in July 1. Unless you guys got a thought of anything right now.
I don't know what you're asking. That wasn't really a question.
Ask you where we want to go with it. Do we want to?
So is there a set limit on hours that the paras and people are
All we have
supposed to
in
be
there is
on?
not to have overtime, but the question was, everybody was basing them on 7 hours.
Can I chime in? a
Yep,
little
chime
bit?
in a little bit.
So when paras and cooks, it's not just the paras,
Yes.
it's all the 9-month staff.
Yes,
So the paras are, and I don't know where this number came from, it's just how it's always been. They are a 7-hour-a-day position is what it's always been. And I have realized that they are not working 7 hours, so they should maybe be a 7.5-hour day, which jives with the exact times that Mrs. Bussey just gave. But the problem, I guess, which isn't really a problem, but maybe they're being unfairly paid, is that when they get holiday pay, they only get paid for 7 hours, because that's their standard week. And then the kitchen staff is getting paid for 7.5 hours, because that's their standard week. When it's storm pay, 7.5. When they're able to use leave, it's 7 or 7.5 hours, because they aren't supposed to go over their standard number of hours for the week, which is 35 and 37.5.
which all comes back to that standard hour thing. Yes.
So 1520 divided by 37.5 is 40.5. How many weeks of school is there?
Well, the school approximately 36,
But there's
But-
gonna be
but there's
start
gonna
set up
be,
and
then
then it's
the
gonna break
next-
down.
The next difference is that the number that's been being used for budgeting purposes, because this isn't the first time I've asked about that number, is totally out of whack from what we're paying them for each day. So it's just very confusing to even explain where the numbers come from. So I just want a better understanding of what you guys expect each position should be working.
This is where an employee handbook would be.
Mhm, exactly.
What page are we on?
Mhm.
Hey, can we kind of set up a timeline for the handbook? Because
We had a
that's-
timeline. We had a
like
time.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're still waiting.
Right, so if it's
Well,
ready next
no.
month, that'll be good.
So, I mean, naturally, I heard that this was wanted and that we used to have one and then it went away, so. I have it in my hands and can take over. Like,
Can I
Lead.
input that the business manager could also help with the handbook a
Yes.
lot? Like I have written handbooks
Yeah.
before.
Well, and you
I
know
mean,
what is already
right.
currently happening.
So I mean.
you're not
Just
gonna wanna
roll
rock
more
the
to
boat
Lindsay's
on you
side
either.
to-
Yeah.
yep,
to tie
and so
things
that's what
together.
I'm wondering, like, being a part of the policy committee, and then like Lindsay said, well, make sure you work with me and.
Can you jot notes of what is currently happening and your current understanding? Well, you just said a bunch of them. So you
Right.
have a concept of what is currently
Mhm.
happening.
I have actually lots of notes on what I think should be in the handbook because Mr. Severson had asked me to do it a couple of different times.
Right. They just need to be pulled together.
So,
And I think the important part is if something is decided on in a board meeting, right? Because the teachers take notes of that and what's happening is that we make sure that it's stated in that common place or.
And my opinion is that the handbook should be an item that is updated in
Every
time
July.
and reviewed every
Yeah.
July. And approved.
Absolutely.
Yep.
At the annual meeting.
I've got no problem with that, so what we gotta do to get to it is all right.
It's already started.
We'll see, you got to it.
A draft, yes.
Well, then,
Draft
once it's done, I think you guys should sit down, whether it be the administration plus Lindsay or administration plus Lindsay and a teacher rep, I don't know.
But this isn't a teacher handbook. This
No.
is like the hourly. staff
Okay, so
handbook.
then
But it's an employee.
it's an
handbook, so
employee,
both
so
would
it'd be
included.
both
There
would
would
be
be
in there.
sections in both,
Yeah.
yes.
They get, the way the one that I've seen is written is very confusing because they overlap so
Yeah.
much. It needs to be more differentiated because not the same rules apply to everyone.
But you could have two that, there's certain rules that apply to everybody in the building.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then there's certain rules that only apply to teachers, only apply to
Yes.
the other staff.
I think they should be separate.
They should be two separate books.
should be
They should be separate books, but have the same common stuff
In both.
in both.
Make a
Yes.
copy.
There, yeah, there's
But
some basic things.
I look at it this way. If it's already started, type up what you had from 16, 17.
Mhm.
Sit down and, cross out the stuff that's old, update it and get it to us as soon as possible. I'd like July or you want June?
I think as we move into the new year, we need it in place.
Yeah,
I'd like, yeah,
For
by
approval
June,
in
I'd like
July.
to see
I mean,
something.
June, you got just over a month.
So then, who's doing this? That's the next part that needs to be,
I think it's a group
Established.
of people. I think as we review things in real time, it could be the leadership team because we have representatives from different areas.
And this is where we get it started. Get the rough draft done.
Yeah.
Then Lindsay and you and the other administrators sit down, update it to what needs to be done, and then go from there.
Does it fit into negotiations committee or does it fit into policy committee? Because it should be,
Well, I think a lot of the policies will affect it, but I don't know if it's necessarily a policy
I
committee.
don't think it's a policy committee thing.
No,
More of a whole board.
but somebody's got to be held accountable
Yes.
to manage when and who does it and did it get accomplished?
yes.
Right.
So
I-
who does that?
That's where we're going.
That's what I'm asking is, because we
If
do
you
this a
can tell people
lot,
to
we
do it.
talk about things, but then nobody specifically put in.
I think if Lindsay's been working on a policy book,
But I haven't been. She's the one that's been
Right.
working on it.
I
I've got
think
some
those-
handwritten.
between the
stuff.
two to work that out.
Yeah.
Get a draft.
and then in July, we'd sit and
Then
talk
we look
about
at the draft.
who's gonna be from this point forward. What committee is gonna be in charge of it, or if you make up a new committee that just reviews it, whatever, but it has to be reviewed every year and updated as you go.
Can it be a really rough draft by June?
Yeah.
Pencil copy by June 20th. For the board.
And showing what was changed from the old one, not just to retype. thing, see what we're doing.
Do we?
So you're like cross off. what
Well,
was
make us a
taken out.
copy of the old one and then.
What
the
the
new
old one was,
I like when it's crossed off.
Is
whatever,
it-
just so we can see the
Yeah.
change, yes.
Was the old one approved or was it just a draft statute?
No, it was approved
It was
in
approved.
twenty
It was-
sixteen.
Okay. Got it.
I was told it was approved.
Okay.
The old one was.
Then you have to do that.
Yes, yes. So you need to see what was approved and what the change is, yes.
Because technically that should still be enforced.
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes.
Yes.
Hmm.
Can't wait to read that.
Ooh.
Technically, that one has
Ours is
not been
50 years
changed.
old
That's the one that's in
now.
force.
We've been talking
That's
about
been
it for 5
approved.
years
Then you're
after that.
paying out leaves.
Yeah, I know. That's what I say. None of that's been updated. That
And that's what,
technically, that's what's in place. That's why a lot of their questions are clarification. They're valid questions.
so we solved that now. We got somebody on it.
Yep,
It's gonna happen.
June 20th. Check your email. Prior
For the rough draft.
for the draft.
I'll put emergency on it and I get to it.
So then, do we want to get back as a negotiating budget or just full discussion at the board? Because we'll need a recommendation for pay increases, not or whatever at the June 20th meeting also.
Does the budget, finance, or negotiation have an idea in mind?
No, because we just met with them.
Okay,
The negotiating group just met with them before this meeting. So we've not
So
sat
then
down as
they
a
have
group.
to sit.
I would sit down with,
One of those two groups have got to sit down
right,
and talk about that and bring back a recommendation.
so who's ever on those, where would it be? Whose responsibility thing would it fall under better, negotiation or budget and finance?
How can you negotiate something if you don't know what you have to play with?
Well, that's where I'm kind of getting at.
In the past,
So-
it's been budget and finance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because we aren't technically
Yeah.
allowed to negotiate.
Yeah,
so-
we're not, we're just coming back.
Well, no, yeah, just an idea of what we can afford and what's something that they can.
Okay.
So budget and finance get together, so we're
We'll
saying,
get back together. Okay. Budget. Come back with a recommendation. Okay. Okay. We'll set that up. Tuition-free agreement.
That's not it. There's two of them. One is admitting from Jamestown. And the other is going to Jamestown.
One in, one out. Okay.
One student, one student.
One student coming in, two going out.
That one's actually from you.
I have no idea.
We need motion for a tuition-free agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I can second.
Second. Roll call, Lindsay.
Chad.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Brett.
Yes,
Okay, then we're gonna move to the first reading and virtual learning policy, which will tie to a couple other things here too.
Yeah, Mr. Bussey sent that out to you. There was that
Yeah.
one change from superintendent to administration. So you just need approval for the first reading and then we come back in June and formally approve it.
So when I ask you, Mike, okay, so when it says it will write up all the, how it's gonna be handled, is that gonna be administrative guidelines? Is that gonna be tied to the policy?
So what was that for again?
Where it says administrator will write,
Yeah, I'm assuming that would be regulations. That wouldn't be part of the policy.
so that. would
Unless
go
you-
into-
unless the
No, I'm
board
not,
wants it,
so that'll
yeah.
go into administrative guidelines in that section.
Yeah.
And not tied to the policy.
Yeah.
It'll be in the policy book under administrative guidelines.
Yes.
So we will see them. Second reading,
The guidelines.
the guidelines.
I'll look through them and see what we can talk about that and see what we gotta put in there.
Because that's what the policy said, it would be wrote up. So we can see them at the second reading.
I'm just confused because I must have missed, there must have been communication there.
I asked him before,
About
because it
guide-
says
She
in
just
there-
said something, he said something about guidelines. And it's in the policy.
in the policy.
I'm not sure. Is that what it was?
So my question to him after we talked about
And I'm-
last month is,
I'm
it
figuring
should
it's
gonna
gotta
be in
be-
guidelines, or is it gonna be part of the policy, or what?
Yeah.
Establish procedures for
Yep.
transitioning students into and out of the virtual instruction period. Establish procedures for ongoing communication with students, parents, or legal guardians during the virtual instruction. Establish procedures for how
So do
districts
they
will
have
track.
recommendations for that in
I'd
theirs?
have to look and see. I haven't
Okay.
seen any of that.
Because we have talked about some of that in the meeting. But if we need to put it on paper, we can, but typically they have.
I'll check on that with school board.
So what we've been doing as we update the policies is we have it under the BCN School Board Google Drive. And so as you guys agree on certain policies and stuff, we pull in those extra things under that Google Drive doc. So all of what we're experiencing now doesn't happen in the future. So if there's administrative regulations, we pull those into the Google Drive so that nobody has to go looking for what that looks like at BCN. Does that make sense? So if this policy is approved right now, you know, Mr. Wilson's plan that we talked about is to follow the bell schedule, but elementary looks different because of the age group. So we'll pull in the document that says elementary e-learning day or whatever, so that is easily accessible. And then as it's updated or changed, that will be updated. So it's all in one spot.
So that was my question. Will we see that when we see the second reading?
Yes, I didn't realize that it had to be on paper for that. So
Well, I didn't know there was
if there's a
additional
template,
information.
Yeah.
if there's a template for it, we'll
Yeah, I'll
go by
check and see
that.
what
And
the
if
template-
not, we can put what was discussed in that meeting on paper and pull it into that drive and share it with you guys.
Yeah.
A hard
Because
copy.
the ancillary staff actually wondered,
'Cause
who
that ties-
determines goes to virtual days?
Yes,
'cause it's
What
gonna.
does
tie-
other staff do?
yep.
How does
So-
it work for guidance for, especially for elementary? Because high
Yeah.
school is a total
Do you
different
have all
ballgame.
those questions written down too? Because I actually just talked to a para,
No,
to become a like para that can work in a Title I or school-wide school, you have to have certain requirements. And so 2 of our paras have been working through that this year, and there's 100 and some modules, but 4 are required for this. And so she goes, I don't have to do the 100 and some, right? I said, no. So in our principals meeting, we actually just talked about how those modules could be assigned for professional development on storm days. And so they're still putting in some of their hours, but then they're learning things that pertain to them that would meet our requirements too. So it's really cool that we have access to this and they're explicit. So if one paras, you know, says I could really use some extra support in this, they would work through that module on a snow day or whatever. So have those questions and let's.
It can be more than just
that
the
was,
paras.
that was a major
There's a major
discussion
discussion.
for the non-certified
So
staff
once
was,
once we decide on if they were going and
And that
approving
links
this, then we're
to
gonna
the
have to.
handbook too.
Yes,
Because
that all needs to be incorporated.
it
Yeah.
absolutely does.
So I don't know, personal opinion, I don't know how you can pass a policy like this when you don't have any
All the rest of it.
administrative consideration on the back.
So the first step is for him to see if there's a template for the regulations.
Got it.
And then go from there.
So are we coming back with a first reading next month, or what are we?
We're gonna have to, yep.
Okay.
I mean, if you guys agree with waiting until you see those regulations, I would.
Well, I sure don't want to vote for something I didn't see regulations for.
Just make sure you check your email.
Yeah,
So all this ties to there, so that's a calendar change, we can, and the other discussion about the handbook
Mhm.
with. What is the thought of as they're working on it, what's the thought of the board? Right now, if you have a storm day, as your sheet, like Cindy's got in front, the storm day says they're going to be paid for them. Is virtual days going to be considered the same thing
For
for
non-certified staff.
non-certified staff?
What is administration's thought?
What,
Is
The
that what you're?
board's-
No,
the
board.
board's
say
thought.
that again? What,
Take the cooks.
yep,
Okay, right now, if we call school off.
yep,
They get paid for that day, because
7.5
nobody's
hours.
coming
Because
to
no one's
work,
coming in.
Yep,
as it was before. Teachers aren't coming in, staff ain't coming in, we're paying for them.
Right.
What if we go to virtual days? That's not covered in that because that says storm days.
right.
So their question is, what is what is the definition of a virtual day for the non-certified staff?
So that would have to get added into there.
Yes,
As well.
Hours and.
And that
That's
was
what-
probably 20 minutes.
that was most of the
50-minute
conversation.
conversation.
Because some are coming in and working some are not. What are we gonna do with a virtual day for the non-certified staff?
Because it's a day that's not made up,
Because it's a day that's not made up,
so they,
because they've
They
lost
can't
their,
make it
they
up.
can't make it up.
Yep.
All staff, it wouldn't be just a 12-month staff, aren't, I mean, they're gonna be.
right,
not all
right,
staff.
right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
everybody that's not, that's, yeah.
No.
Yes.
So my question is, on the snow days, when
We were talking canceled days like.
Storm
the
days.
storm days, if this were to go through, it would go from 5 to 3.
Yep.
So you do those 3. What is being done to them during that one?
If it's a
That-
storm
that-
day and nobody, and you're not making up,
They're
they're
getting
getting
paid.
paid.
They're getting
Yeah.
paid.
Whether
Okay,
Across the
they-
board, teachers, everybody that isn't coming that day, we're not making it up, everybody's getting paid.
Okay.
Whether they work 4
Whether they work
hours
or
or they
not.
work 0, or
Okay.
they work 8.
yep, I get that. So then when we go to virtual learning, it's a result of weather-related school closure.
Correct.
So why wouldn't it just be the same?
That's
The
what-
issue
That's
is
the
that some
question.
people are going to be working on that day and some people aren't, and it's about fairness.
And that's already happened.
I don't know if it is fair now.
It's
I
not,
agree.
it's not, that ain't happening now, but
But I also think that people have different roles and do different things, so how
Yes.
can you,
Yes.
again. it
that's why
comes
the
down-
20 minutes of discussion.
Again, it comes down
Yeah.
to role clarification, what's expected, and that's not done yet.
Mhm.
So it's going to keep going around until that part is done.
That could be the floating holiday.
They can.
Do they choose it? That's all what needs to be clarified also.
So just a thought, that part of the virtual day was a big discussion.
And I think in putting all this together, we have to understand that it's never gonna be
Fair.
the
No.
same
No, for
and
everybody.
fair. Because different roles require different duties,
Mhm.
and that is bottom line. It's never gonna be the same.
I don't think anybody in the meeting at 6 o'clock was asking for fair.
No,
I did not gather that by any means from any of them.
no,
It was just definitions was more.
it was all
Of the
clarification and definitions that is
So
made.
that they're
So they
clear
knew,
on the expectation and how it was gonna
Correct.
be handled.
yes.
Would you say that, Lynn? I mean, it was mostly,
I
Definite.
don't think fair came out of anyone's.
no,
No,
no.
no.
No,
And it
they
was
didn't.
not even,
And I had referred to
Interpreted.
that before because during COVID, that was brought up a lot.
Yep.
So I
was-
mean, it was a
Yes.
real issue that was being talked about.
Because right now, just like what happened there, we've got some people working X amount of hours and then the other ones staying home.
Yep.
We already got that right now,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know.
I agree.
Mhm.
so that's part of this virtual policy
Yeah.
that needs to be hammered out before you can pass a virtual policy at this point.
What's the policy?
Well, I'm not
So it's
be
gonna
able-
have to go really
I'm not
go
gonna be able
back
to
to
file
policy
this
because
for a few
when I
months.
look at it now, it says the board in collaboration with administration shall identify, establish.
Right.
Mhm.
So. it
The way
does
the
not- I
policy is
mean,
written.
So we really can't do it.
Yeah,
It's gotta be a board thing with collaborating with
As I
us.
say, the way this policy is written.
Yeah, so that,
really
so that has to go
curtails-
back completely to the policy committee. Because they would be representing the board then, because it says the board in collaboration with the administration.
But one comment, I do not have the tools to come up with procedures for transition.
That's why I
So
said in
there's gonna
collaboration,
need
yeah.
to be some.
But it's
type
gotta
of-
be the board that is the one that's in there. I mean, so it's
Yes.
initiated now. We just need to have the collaboration with,
Yeah.
if you want to, you push it to the policy committee, that's who would do this.
But again, we need the regulations
there's any
and we
templates.
need some clarification with handbook,
Yes,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
absolutely.
That has to be first.
Oh,
Let's kick that can down the road a little further.
No. That phrase.
no.
So all this is coming back 20th of June. Okay,
So in policy, we'll have to set up a meeting between now and June 20th.
Yes.
Yep.
There, now you have your homework.
Okay. So all that come back virtual, the calendar, handbook, it's all coming back. Okay. Bus bids. We got some bus bids.
Got 2 bus bids. to open.
You can.
Got 2 bids, one from Harlow. Hartley's opted out. They sent me an email and said they will not be bidding. I'm assuming it's because they can't get any units on the ground anytime soon.
Do we have a certain spec we asked for? Big
Yep,
bus,
yep,
small
that
bus?
was all set to them, everything that we needed.
No, it's kind of questionable. saying
Harlow's-
whether they're available.
Harlow's was a 71 passenger seated. 77 seated 71. Harlow's is 102,175. So I'm not gonna see, I don't know when they would have it on the ground.
And they would have one, does that have cameras in it too for that?
I'm sure not. I'm sure just stock units are just coming in that way. That would be without cameras. I-State trucks in Center Ground is 102,500, and that was what, 102,175.
175.
Same
Same,
model.
same bus, 71 passenger, 77 seat.
77 seated 71.
Motor wise specs, everything what Dan and them were looking.
This is they sent me the specs that they want sent out. I sent those out. This is what came back. Their recommendation is obviously I-State because that's all that, almost all of our buses are I-State buses.
So what is a 77 person? Is it like, it's not a route bus, it's the
It's
activity
gonna be a
bus?
route bus.
Route bus.
It's a route bus.
The ground.
It's not the
Good
short bus.
question.
Well, the 77 passenger, it's, I think it's rated as 3 in a seat, isn't it?
Yes.
So that would be Route 6 bus. Mary
I'm not
Plum's
sure
bus.
which one it is.
Mary Plum's bus. Is about that size, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a big
Because
bus.
Ann Hovland's bus
Yeah, it's not.
is
No,
this one.
no.
Yeah. Not that one.
Like 14.
Yeah. Just,
Yeah, as far as size goes, it's the same size.
it's the mid-size basically of your fleet, or the fleet. Okay. Mr. T, your bus has got to be about that size then too.
Looks similar there, Mr. Fair.
Sort of. Just checking, this one has LED lights, tail lights. This one came in lower bid, the one at 102,175. But if you want LED lights on the interior, it's another $425. And if you want LED exterior lights, it's another $1,050. So I'm just checking to see if this one's already has them.
Okay.
That would be
Yep.
1,100-1,200 less.
So transportation has not seen those bids then.
No.
No, just open it.
Those were fresh envelopes, I could see it.
We budgeted 85, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the full budget was 112.5 for that.
Yeah, but
Line item.
when we were planning budget, we were thinking 85. for that, but
When's the last bus?
We
the school
buy
bought?
one a year.
One a year.
We tried to do 1 year.
The one
Who did
last
we
year
buy
was a
from
mini
last?
bus.
Yes.
From I-State. For like 50-some thousand.
Because we got like the 10 routes, so we tried to get 1 a year. It's
Mhm.
about one every 10-year rotation.
Mhm. Who do we do maintenance through?
Dan.
Usually we do
On-site,
most
unless
of
there's
it.
And if
major-
they have stuff that they need to take in, they go to I-State.
Yeah, major warranty stuff.
So I-State is the existing relationship.
That's where
last
they order
year-
parts from.
Yeah.
go to the transportation.
I know I guess I can tell you what Dan is, they would prefer the I-State truck. I-State, that's because that's
that
their,
makes
they got
sense,
better
yeah.
customer service in Dan's opinion. And it's
Well,
easier to get parts and
If their bid is technically lower due to the additional items that Brett read.
Well, and that's, I can't see there, they spec those items exactly on the I-State, but you know, those guys added them in, so. When you're at $102,000 and you're within $500 of each other, it's pretty
Mhm.
nip and tuck either way.
There is-
Those are the things that break a bidder's heart.
It's in my opinion too, if they already have an existing
Relation.